Me again, hello, YouTube, pedal people. Another question I got was, can you compare loopers? Well, first of all, I don't necessarily like to play companies against each other. You know, I seem to be from Scotland. I'm horrible at accents. I don't even do a German accent well, you know? So anyway, we talk about the switches. Why do German accents always make people like a gay James Bond villain? We talk about the switches now. We will talk about the buttons and the shacks on the back and the sturdy construction. Yes, the sturdy construction. Movies paint us wrong. Come on, seriously. But okay, where was I? More coffee. I don't like to play companies against each other, especially if I have a great relationship with companies. I am good friends with the people from Joyo, that's no secret. And Steve Chen from Moen is a really nice guy who didn't hesitate a second to send me his products to get some cool videos made. So, am I going to tell you that one is better than the other? No, I'm going to show you the pros and cons of each of them. And what I found on the looper market, and I really dug into that, especially before I went to China because I wanted to discuss it with Joyo. Sadly, we didn't have a lot of time to talk about loopers. There really isn't the one system that flexibly allows you to do anything you want. There are incredibly good loopers. You can spend up to $2,000 for one if you want the really high-end stuff with 16 loops. But if you want, I would like to create a system where you can buy modules and just continue to upgrade your system as you buy pedals, as you get a different amp, and not have to completely destroy your whole board and your whole system and buy everything new. I mean, if you buy a little 4-loop like this, I'd be able to say, well, I'm buying two more pedals, I can add 2 more loops. And I would like this all to be one system from one company and to be modular. And I have a really cool idea for this, how to do it. Just need a company that wants to do it. So, we're going to look at the loopers and switches I have here. And that is primarily, of course, Joyo and Moen. And they all have their cool things and not so cool things they do. So, we go from small to big. There are a lot of videos on my channel about the PXL series from Joyo. That goes into every detail, so I'm going to be brief on these. PXL4, 2 presets, A and B, isn't really that much. 4 loops, so you can have your choice of combination of those 4 loops on 2 presets, then you go up in bank, which shows here, and you have again 2, up in bank, again 2. So it's only 2 presets per bank, and very easy to program. Edit, pick your loop, store, done. Small, inexpensive for a small board, absolutely sufficient. If you click A or B again, it goes into bypass, and they are clicky switches. They're not little unclicky, just the soft ones, soft button. I don't know. So they're the big clicky ones. Definitely for the price a great product if you have a small board. And if you click them again while you're on the preset, it goes into bypass. It's important, not every looper has a bypass function. Okay? So if you click the one again, it goes into bypass, which is a great feature of the Joyos, but it's also a downside of the Joyos in some way, depending on what you want to do. So let's go one step higher. Same concept, 8 loops this time, all in a row, all one loop of 8. Again, simple programming. you have A, B, C, D, so you have 4 presets per bank, 8 banks up and down. No fuss about it, very simple, no triggers, no nothing, no switching functions for your amp. Just 8 loops in front of your amp, that's it. Put your amp on clean, 8 pedals in it for a bigger board. 8 pedals is already quite a lot. Very nice. Video on my channel, in depth. Next for Joyo would be the PXL Pro. Now this has 4 trigger outs. Okay, 4 individual mono trigger outs. Many amps have a stereo input, so you need to use a 2 mono to 1 stereo cable. And many amps have a DIN, looks like a MIDI cable but isn't, a DIN plug for the proprietary foot switch with channel 1, 2, 3 boost and reverb, or whatever you can switch. Now, you can very possibly switch that on the amp with the 4 triggers, but you're going to have to manufacture yourself a breakout cable from 4 mono plugs to a DIN cable. And how to do that and how to wire it, you have to contact the amp manufacturer and see if you can get the specs for that cable. Now, this has 2 loops of 4. 4 in front of the amp, 4 in the effects loop if you want, 4 in front of one amp, 4 in front of another amp if you want, or all 8 in front of the amp. Okay? Again, A, B, C, D, 4 presets per bank, 8 banks up and down. It has a mute switch, which once you click, sends a signal to the tuner. If you click it again, it sends a signal to the tuner but mutes the outputs of the 2 loops. Not the inputs, could be important, it mutes the outputs of the loops. So if you had, let's say, a chorus pedal that goes stereo and the other output still goes to another amp, that would still go there. Okay, it only mutes the outputs of the loops. And you click it again and you're back. Now the cool thing is, if you click it once, it goes to the tuner, but it still goes to the other amp. Okay, so it has 3 functions. Since it's then going to the tuner and the normal output, you could actually run to 2 amps. Don't go to a tuner, go to amp 1 and amp 2. So amp 2 would get all these effects. Amp 1 would get the clean signal, and you can put other effects in there. So there is a way to do bi-amping, or let's say amp switching with this, using this button. You know, it's a kind of ass-backwards way, but it's a way to do it, and there is a video called bi-amping, PXL Live bi-amping demo or something on my channel. Very cool, shows some really cool stereo sounds. So these are very sturdy, they're heavy, they're about 60 centimeters long, so they fit a 60 centimeter board perfectly. They're not too wide. I mean, if you've seen the, what's it called, Octa switch from Carl Martin, fully analog, very high-end 8 channel and 8 preset switch, but the Octa switch has very narrow spacing between the foot switches, and it's huge. It's like 3 times as wide. I mean, you need a huge board just to put the Octa switch on. So these are relatively small. Again, 4 and 4, tuner out, 4 trigger switches. PXL Live, exactly the same thing, all the same functions. Difference is 2 trigger outs, so only 2, but it has MIDI. Okay, midi, M-I-D-I, MIDI. Many of you have problems with MIDI because you don't know what it is. You need the right manual, and I have seen several attempts now to write a manual for this. There's a German manual out from Thomann, and Ali from Thomann actually did a great job spending a lot of time writing a manual for this, but it's still not super transparent. I wrote an English manual for this, spent a whole day on it. For some reason it's not yet in the box when you buy it, I don't know why. But you can, of course, write me and I'll send it to you. It's complicated. Complicated to program. Some workaround because they're not working from 0 to 127, they're working from 1 to 128 in terms of MIDI numbers, and you have probably no idea what I'm talking about. So, complicated to program when it comes to the MIDI end of it, but totally doable. Limited when it comes to these clicky switches, because you can't just turn... there's a limitation of what this can do. The thing is, when you go into preset A, it picks a preset. When you click A again, it goes into bypass. You have the option to send a trigger as well as a MIDI signal when you go into bypass, which means you could send a MIDI signal to your MIDI capable amp and switch the channel on the amp when you click bypass, which is cool. It's a cool function, but also not. And you don't know what I'm talking about. You would see when you want to program this. So, at Thomann, as right now FXL Pro, that's their name for it, rebranded at Thomann as FXL Pro for $179. Now that's a steal. $179 for an 8-channel switcher with 2 triggers and MIDI capability. Your only hurdle, your only obstacle will be to learn how to program it, and you're gonna have to spend an hour or two learning this. Okay? You're gonna have to dig in. But it's a good product. Again, 60 centimeters, relatively small footprint, sturdy construction, does a good job. Oh, all these are buffered. I get questions about this. And buffered doesn't mean crap. Some people, give me a sec here, some people actually go ahead and buy expensive buffers to improve their signal quality. If you don't know what a buffer can do for you, check out my video, Dr. J Armor Buffer, where you see the difference between a signal chain of 11 pedals with decent patch cables, with and without the buffer, and it's huge difference. So a buffer is not a bad thing. In this case, it is always buffered, and you can't pick whether your signal is buffered or not. And there are some pedals like wahs or older fuzzers that don't like a buffered sound, buffered signal. They can't handle it. So if you want to use those, this is not for you, because you don't have the choice to turn the buffer off. Okay? Going into the other company, Moen. Slightly different approach, also cool. Now this thing is very nice. Very nice. I like it a lot. That was a German doing an Italian accent. I like it a lot. I like it more and the switch is very good. You have to switch. Aren't all, you know, accents just totally insulting to the people speaking that language? Yes, but they're funny, huh? Okay. So here, we have input and tuner. Same thing, so if you hit it, just like the Joyo, if you hit the T, it will go to the tuner out, but it's not free, it's just on and off. It will automatically mute when you go to the tuner, so no bi-amping capability. I'm noticing it's lighter. It's also shorter, so on a 60 centimeter board, you still have about this much space to put a little pedal, maybe like a little Moen more or whatever, or like a little switch. I had the Strymon favorite switch here. So this has 7 loops in a row in front of the amp, and an 8th loop which is completely separate to put in your FX loop or in front of another amp or whatever. So this isn't 4 and 4, this is 7 and 1. It has 2 trigger outs, very nice. On the Joyos, if you can see that on the back, the jacks are totally in the looper, okay? So there's nothing sticking out. I can't tell you anything about the quality of that system. It's very nice and sleek. And here they are the typical, you know, on top of things jacks. They seem, I don't know, they seem more sturdy, but who knows? I don't know. So, again, 7 and 1, 2 trigger outs. What Moen does well is 2 mono trigger outs, okay? But if your amp has a stereo input, then you can use just trigger out number 1 with a stereo cable. It'll disable number 2 and route both trigger functions to the one stereo plug, which is very nice. Programming is relatively straightforward. Feedback over the loops that are on and off you get here with the little lights, and foot switch 1 and 2 you also get here. It shows you 1 through 7 in a little group, and then 8 separate. A, B, C, D. Bank only up. If you're on bank 4 and you want to go back to bank number 1, you gotta go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, and then you're back on 1, or like 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, and not the greatest system to switch between bank 1 and 2, because if you're in bank number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1. Don't like that too much. If you plan your sounds right, it'll work. Now, this, no clicky switches, no clack clack, okay? They're soft switches, so if you push it and you push it again, nothing will happen, it's just one function. But also no bypass. So if you want a bypass completely, you actually have to program a bypass. Program is relatively straightforward. Hold it in, pick 1, 2, 3, 4, push this, hold this in. Then you pick 1, 2, 3, 4, push it again, then this will change in color, and then it's 5, 6, 7, 8. Relatively straightforward. But if you want a quick bypass, you have to sacrifice one of the 4 presets to have no loops on. It's small, it's very small, it's very sleek, doesn't eat up any space on your board, and it's a dependable looper. Slightly different approach than Joyo, but still very good. Now here we have the GEC9 from Moen. It's on my board right now, so I can't show you the same way. There's my board that I built just for the GEC9. Very neat board, so look at the video for that, just came out. Very nice, the most easy to program looper on the market. I'll show you. Actually, you have to turn the board on. So, if you have, wait, get some more light here, there you go. So if you have a, wait, gotta focus. If you have a preset on, where are we, why is everything on here? Okay. So, if you're on preset 1 out of 5, all you have to do is click these little buttons to pick the loops you want. That's it, programmed. No saving, no nothing, no menu. You go on the next preset and you pick whatever you want. Compressor, modulation, I want that drive and some reverb. Done. Okay. It doesn't have trigger outs, but it has 9 loops. So these 3 loops here are separate, the green ones. Okay, so the green ones are separate, and each one is a separate loop on the back. I don't know if you can see that. Let me show you. No, you can't. No. So on the back, there's no trigger out. There's a tuner out, which you can access with this button. Bank up and down. But as I said, each of these 3 loops is completely separate with separate input and output. And they can be misused as a trigger out if you want to. So loop number 9 right now I have set up with this cable. Look at the video for that as a trigger out, and it works fine. So bank up and down, that's good. As for bypass, very easy. You push the button again, which the GEC8 Junior doesn't do. You push the button again, and you have bypass. See, lights come off. So this is extremely easy to use. It does eat up more space. It's deeper, okay, but it is an extremely easy to use, simple looper. 9 loops, and 3 of them are completely independent, individually independent. So loop number 7 can be used independently from 8, from 9, and each of them can be used as a trigger, as a switch, if you desire to. Which brings us to the last one, newest one in the Moen family. There's, I think, 3 videos or something on my channel for this. The GEC 8 Live, GEC 8 Live, really nice kind of brushed aluminum look. This builds on the GEC 9, but has 8 loops, 2 trigger outs, like the GEC 8 Junior. Trigger out number 1 can be used as a stereo plug, which disables trigger out number 2, just like the GEC 8 9. Also on the 8. On the 8 it has 2 trigger outs, the 8 Junior, sorry. Forgot to tell you that the 8 Junior has 2 trigger outs, this one. But if you don't need loop number 8, you can use loop number 8 as a trigger, which is cool. So it'll turn on and off, it'll actually switch your amp or something. Just like the GEC 9. And the GEC 8 Live has the same functionality, 2 trigger outs. And 3 completely separate loops. So loop number 6, 7, and 8 are completely separate. So if you want to use them as one chain, you actually have to patch them with little patch cables on the looper. What I forgot to tell you is the GEC 9 on the board, and this one as well, have the option to use them not buffered. So there's a buffered input and a buffered output, so you can actually go buffered to anything you want. Use it internally buffered, or there's a non-buffered input. Okay, so either way you want, you can use the internal buffer, which I think is a good idea to keep the signal nice and strong, but you don't have to. So those two actually give you the option to use them not buffered. MIDI output, that's the important thing for this. And there's a second MIDI output. Okay? Now the second MIDI output reads external foot switch. They weren't sure about what to do with that. The cool thing is, if you contact Moen, they could actually program this for you internally, wire it, to match the switching functions on your amp. And that is way cool. It's a little bit of a process you have to go through to find out what amp you have and talk to them, but they can make one for you that uses this as an external DIN switch to switch your amp. If your amp needs 4 switching functions, here's the kicker. 1 and 2 will be taken over by the internal switch. 3 and 4 would have to be used by sacrificing loops 7 and 8. Okay, so the more switching functions you need, the less loops you will have. There's also a little foot switch called the shadow foot switch that attaches to it for more functionality. There's also, because it has 8 preset, 8, how do you do that? No, that's 6. I don't know how to do 8 in Chinese anymore. Yeah. That's not. You have 8 preset buttons, 1, 7, 8. When you go to program mode, bang, you have the option of actually just controlling every loop right there in a live mode. So 4 on and off will switch loop 4 on and off. So this can actually, without programming it, be a very quick way to get to your loops. Similar to the 9 where you just push the button, but here you can do it just with your feet. It is a complicated piece of equipment. Programming the MIDI section is not very easy. It's not a very flexible MIDI section. It can only do channel 1 and 2. It can only do program change. You can do some continuous controller, but very limited to what Moen pre-programmed. And bank only goes up, but you have an option to pre-select how many banks it shows. So if you only need 2 banks of 8, you can only do 2, and then it switches between those 2. So that's kind of nice. It's complicated. You should really watch the video manual that I made of this. There's a demo and there's an actual manual where I explain how to do it. The feedback you get through these lights up here about which loops are on and off is a little bit stupid. Sometimes it shows you what loops are on, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes these lights above the switches show you what loops are on, sometimes it doesn't. You always have to know which mode am I in, and in this mode, they give me this feedback. I'm thinking in terms of usability and just user-friendliness, this needs a do-over. It's stable, it's solid, it's got MIDI, it's got stereo out. I forgot to say that. Loop number 5 is stereo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stereo going to stereo out, and then there's 3 separate ones. So this is the most expensive in the bunch. This is 400. Let's look at some prices, if I can figure that out. This is 400. GEC 9 I think is 299, and I'm thinking the 8, GEC 8 Junior, I think clocks in at about 199. So bottom line, the Moens are all more expensive than the Joyos. Okay. Joyo PXL Live clocks in at 179, I already said that. PXL Pro, depending on where you buy it, 159, 169. The 8 and the 4 below that, depending on where you buy. Oh my god, have I spent hours in my life talking about loopers and switches, and I'm probably not done, huh? Woo! So, there you have it. There are individual videos for all of these on my channel. There are individual overviews. I mean, you can spend days looking at loopers on my channel. And if you want to, go right ahead. Pros and cons of all of them. Some are very easy to program. Some are harder to program, but therefore give you more functionality, like the MIDI ones. Right now, I'm enjoying the Moen GEC 9 for its simplicity. But I also, working in the studio here, need quick access to different presets. Now, if you're in a band and you have your, 5 to 10 sounds that you usually use, done. You have your songs, you know what you need. Quickly changing the programs might not be an issue. For me in the studio, I have, 12 pedals on this board. Yesterday we had a session, and I needed to pick different combinations relatively fast. So I need a looper that allows me to quickly change something. And the Moen does that. The Joyos wouldn't do it as conveniently. I like the option to have a quick bypass, which the 8 Live and the 8 don't do. Okay, so the other two Moens, if you want bypass, you have to actually program a preset that is bypassed. Don't like that. I think this is enough. Go away.